Zone of genius is the stuff that you absolutely love doing, that really, really lights you up, that gives you energy doing it. You're great at doing it as well, right? And you've mastered it. It gives you fulfillment.
It's not me having to do it, it's me having the choice. And when you are truly an owner in your business, that is when those sorts of choices come up. Welcome to the Awaken Man podcast, Pete. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm anxious today, actually. There's like little anxious feeling I woke up with. Just it is what it is. But yeah, I just thought I'd share. I think what I've been very good at doing in the last couple of years is just simultaneously being able to recognize a feeling and carry on anyway. Yeah, and just like not give it too much gravity. I think it's a lot of the work I've done in my own personal development. But also on the same hand, I'm very chuffed with the last podcast we did and looking forward to some really, really good things that were coming up in the Awaken Man, with the event, with the impossible goal we've got with getting guys on the program. What about you? How are you today, bro?
Yeah, everything's good my end. I'm excited for today's session. Last podcast episode, the absent father, was, that made my stomach go queasy in the morning when I knew that we were doing it. So this one, though, is way different. We're just going straight business, straight practicality. So there's no funny feelings in our stomachs over this one.
Well, this one is what we are like really good at helping guys do, which is go from operator to owner of their business. Now, this is something that both of us have successfully done, and it is something that we help a lot of guys do on a day-to-day basis. So we know all of the struggles, the successes, the mechanics. Pete is like literally a high-level mechanic at helping guys work out what they need to do in order to make this transition. So what is an operator versus an owner in a business, Pete?
I don't want to sound like one of those typical gurus where where you say you need to work on the business, not in the business. But going from operator to owner, part and part of that is being able to work on your business rather than constantly being in it, right? And especially like when we start out as well, like we have to do the operational stuff. We have to really be an operator and really get down into the nitty gritty and do a lot of low value tasks and wear every single hat, right? But as our businesses start to grow, we've got to get out those habits of feeling that we have to still work on those low value tasks and constantly just working in it rather than on it. So today we're going to talk a bit around that.
Yeah. And what is the transition from going operator to owner? Like what do you think, on a high level, what do you think it is that helps a guy go from being in the business to being able to go on the business? Before we go into the steps and stuff but at a high level, I'm a guy in my business. All I'm doing is reacting to clients and doing the next thing, feeling like I have to do 1,000 things a day, managing the money, the clients, the service, the sales. What's going to help me move to the place where I can start to create a level of being an owner and working on the business?
Well, everything you just listed there, if you're doing that, then that's a big sign to say I need to take a step back here and stop doing so much of that and start moving into ownership. And if the growth of your business is stalling, right? So if you're frantically running around, you're serving lots of clients, but your business isn't growing, or you're frantically running around and you're serving lots of clients and your clients aren't getting the results and you're just being super, super reactive all the time, then actually there's probably lots of work that needs to be done to the fundamentals of what you're doing as a business owner and going into more especially when we start out as entrepreneurs and we do this so we can have freedom and build a business and ultimately take ownership, right? But what we can easily fall into, especially if you came from a corporate background, which is what I did, right? I came from corporate, so I was very used to being the worker, very used to being the technical guy that I'm getting the stuff done, I'm doing the technicalities of the work. I wasn't, albeit got myself into a bit of management and so on. I'm still very much working for a corporation, working for someone else. So, and a lot of guys and ladies that might be listening that initially started in corporate and then move into running their own business can easily fall into just being that worker like we were being in corporate.
Yeah. There's actually a really good, I think it's a fable that the best describes the wizard and the farmer, right? So the farmer gets up every day and plows his field, and he pushes the plow, and he attaches himself to how hard he's working. And as he's in the midday sun, he's pushing the plow up and down the field, and he's like feeling self-righteous about every step and every furrow he's plowed. And he's got 10 more fields to plow in that day. And he attaches himself to hard work. And on the other side, you've got the wizard, and he gets up every day, and he attaches himself to how much he can get done with how little he can switch his wand. And when I first, there's loads of permutations I tell of that fable, but it's like, you can either decide to be the farmer or the wizard. And I think that you're born into one of those two mindsets. And I was very much like blue collar worker father. He was in manufacturing. Mum was like hard worker. So I naturally like wanting to work hard. I want to work hard to make things done. And I often bring a work hard mindset to things that don't need to be like that. You can't build a multi-million pound company by doing that stuff. You've got to be able to become the operator, the wizard, who's attached to results, not hard work.
Yeah, the hard work thing, moving into being a busy fool. I vividly remember, especially when I first started out in business, I was like, I'm a savage. No one can outwork me. I work so hard, and I soon learned what a load of bollocks. Right? What a load of, and it's just like having that mindset. Like, why does it even matter? Because it doesn't matter. Like, who gives a shit? And secondly, yeah, there's it's good to put in hard work, but it's about the type of work you do, right? It's like classic. Like, it's like Warren Buffett, right? Classic. His how many hours a day he does. It's like, I don't know what he does. 8 hours a day, right, of hard work versus someone else doing 16 hours a day of hard work. You can't outwork me. I'm doing 16 hours.
Yeah,
But
I think
the leverage that he's using and the type of work that he's using and is very, very different. Like, the way I work now is very, very different to the way I was working, 7-8 years ago when I first started in entrepreneurship. I would be working 16-hour days, and I'd be doing here absolutely everything. Now I do over half that, but my time is prioritized, and I focus on the things that matter, and the things I do are highly leveraged. So more gets done.
Yeah, I've watched you. Like, you're very, very keen to move things from where you start off in an operator stance. So you'll do something, and then you're very quick to move into, right, how can I outsource this? How can I get someone else to do this? Very, like, one of your master skills is that. It's like, first of all, Pete gets to understand it, right? So he understands the mechanics of it or how it's done, but it's not then he wants to hold on to it. He wants to pass the baton on. And I think a lot of operators, they learn a skill. They think that only they can do it because they've learned it to a certain degree, but then they hold tight to it. Think, like, even me, like, I've done this. Is like, I learned how to do video editing, and I was like, only I can do the video editing like I can do it because I know exactly what parts to put in the videos. And then we got a testimonial video done for us, and Pete pointed out, it's like, by the way, we just paid like £15 for that task, which would take you like 3 hours, Ben. And I was like, oh shit. So I think that's like a skill that you need to go from being the operator to the owner, is like, absolutely understand something but be able to pass it on.
Yeah, most people will spend their time doing shit that doesn't matter, or something that someone else can do in half the time and of half the cost.
Probably twice the quality as well.
Yeah, and probably better quality as well, right? And then, like, that's a great example you just said there about the video, right? We went and outsourced the testimonial video, paid someone whatever that was, £15, and they did do it in half the time. They did make they did a phenomenal job of it as well, better than what you were doing. But it's taken you 3 hours. That 3 hours there, that's a lot of time. And to be a great leader, you need enough time. And that's what I see a lot of with a lot of the guys that we work with. One of the first things that we'll start doing is let's have a look at where you're spending your time. Let's prioritize your work, right? Because if you do want to move into being a great leader, you need enough time to do so.
Yeah. Well, we'll go into, I think what would be good, Pete, for guys listening in is to compartmentalize this into like steps. So like, step one, if you're listening to this and you're an operator and you can see that one of the things that you're struggling with is time, Like you're a guy that goes all day and you're struggling to reclaim your time. What would be your first step to help this man, Pete?
Okay, so step number one, I would absolutely go through what I do from the minute I wake up to the minute I go to bed. What does that look like? So I'm waking up at 5:30 and then feet touch the ground. What happens? Like from there to next to next, I'll go, go and get a drink, go and get a shower, go and read a book, whatever that looks like. And then when is the moment that I'm actually starting work, right? Is that 30 minutes after I get up, or is that 5 hours after I get up, right? And then when I do start the work, hour by hour, what am I doing? Or if I'm doing shorter things, 30-minute blocks, what's happening? I want to be seeing that in someone's calendar, or what they've been up to over the last couple of weeks. So then we can see what they've been focusing on, right? And if it's not in your calendar, which I'd say probably 90% of people's work isn't in their calendar, right? Then do we have so me personally, I actually have I have a written diary. So like every day I'm writing down what I'm doing. So I'm like, I write it down the night before. So the night before I plan and this is what I'm going to do tomorrow. And then I tick it off as I go. Can we look back and assess what's in something like that, like a written diary, if you've got that, to see what you've actually been up to over the last couple of weeks and where your time is being spent? Like that is absolutely step number one. And if I haven't got that, then I'm like, right, for the next couple of weeks, I need you to diarize everything that you're doing, right? From the minute you get up to the minute you go to bed, and want to see where the time is being spent. And I need it. And step number two would be to categorize it. If from a business perspective, so when I start work, when I start doing the business stuff, like what's going on, put it into admin, put it into prospecting, put it into sales, put it into marketing, finance, client deliverables, operations. But to get detailed with it, not just write admin.
Yeah.
Or not just write,
Yeah.
I spent 3 hours marketing. Like what was that admin task? Exactly, right? How long did you spend in the emails? And what was that prospecting bit? So you got 30 minutes there of prospecting. Like, what was that? This, right?
How many
This is
times did you actually pick the phone up?
yeah. This is important. This is like this for like step number one and step number two for how to be an effective leader. Is it's freeing up your time, but it's like, well, where can we use that time for better use? At like the higher value tasks as a business owner, where can we put that time? And we need to see where your time's being spent now. So.
Yeah.
Guys listening, this is a fantastic little task, an activity for you to go away and do. Is that like have a look where you spent your time over the last couple of weeks, get granular with it, like get real into the detail there, spend some time doing this. And if you haven't got it, map it out over the next couple of weeks and spend some time doing it, because it's really, really worth it for you to be able to go, do you know what, I'm fucking spending. This is one of my clients, one of my one-to-one clients, and he'll probably listen to this and you know it's him. He had so much of his time was spent on production, because I'm telling him to go out and do more business development, right? And he haven't got much time to go and do business development. Okay, where's all your time being spent? And a good 60-70% of his time was on production, like client deliverability. And this is why it's important to get granular and go, well, what is that production, right? What is that client? Well, it's actually, I'm spending 10% of my time doing strategy with a client on whatever that is. And then the other 90% is actually doing technical work. Okay. And that technical work looks like this. Is that repetitive? Yeah, it is. It's the same thing over and over. Is that a high skill set or low skill set? Actually, it's a low skill set. Anyone could probably do that if I taught them how to do it. Do you think there are other experts out there that could do that? Yeah. Is that low value or high value? Actually, probably really low value, like 10, 15 pounds an hour.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think
So
it's
that's why it's important to go into the detail. You can release something like that. He released how many hours a week it was. It was a lot, like 30 hours a week, right?
wow.
Released from doing that, and then those hours can then be spent on growing the business and like going, okay, well, let's focus on something that's way higher value, like sales, like marketing, right? And we can grow the business now.
30 hours in a week. 30 hours.
Yeah, but that's very, very normal, right?
Yeah.
So I would absolutely be taking that as tasks, steps number one and two, go and do that
Yeah.
and see where you're spending all your time.
I think go back to like what you're sharing there. I think we sit and doing those tasks because we're comfortable doing them, and and like what I would say is like the word to describe it is like catabolic discomfort. We've talked about this before. It's that I'm uncomfortable doing them because I know it's not, it's not actually moving me forwards, but I'm not growing by doing them. I'm actually just staying the same or shrinking over time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like that's one of the things we've got to spot as men is like, actually, do you know what? I've mastered this now. I actually would be better served to give this to someone else and go and do something that stretches me. And that's why impossible goals, we're doing a session on Friday in the Awaken Man Facebook group about why men absolutely need impossible goals for psychological wellness. And actually the thing that an impossible goal does is it forces you to do stuff that you are uncomfortable doing. And it forces you to give up those comfortable tasks that Pete was talking about then.
I want to get on to the next point, which is which is to do with prioritizing work, and it revolves around leverage.
Step 2.
Step 2, leverage. This is us like A, understanding the concept of leverage, and then B, knowing how we can utilize that, and then C, actually fucking going and doing it, right? Actually going to implement forms of leverage. So, and we can absolutely think about low value and high value tasks in our business. One of the actual strategies, simple strategy that we use with all the guys is and you can do this. So if you've done step 1 where you've listed out all your tasks, right? Everything that you do, super, super simple. Put a pound sign or dollar sign next to each task, whether you think this is a $10 task or $100 task or $1,000 task, right? And you will know, right? You can take a real good guess at that. Is this low value or mid value or super, super high value? And then see where your time is being spent. Is it on these low value tasks? Because one of the first forms of leverage that we can use is to delegate, is labor, is using a staff or consultant to go and do that task instead of you.
I think it's having again, it's being able to see yourself as the owner, to be able to step out of that position as well. I think if you see yourself as an operator, you'll naturally just carry on perpetuating tasks like that. I think one of the choices you've got to make, and we spoke about this in the owner victim choice, you've got to choose to see yourself as an owner of your business. And I think going back to your personal identity, running your business, do you see yourself as this busy fool who's in the business, or do you see yourself as somebody who owns a business that runs without them being there, absolute freedom? Do you see your business being able to run without you walking through the door? And I think what happens with a lot of businessmen, Pete, I don't know if you agree with this, is that they just see them like what would I do if I wasn't doing all this shit? And they haven't built a life outside of their business. So I think part of what Pete's sharing is absolutely appropriate, but I think as a caveat to it, you've got to see yourself as a business owner in order to step away, or as you'll constantly perpetuate doing that stuff.
Yeah. Or we free up like earlier, we free up 30 hours of someone's time per week, and then we fall back into really bad habits, and then just fill those 30 hours with other low value tasks or other things we don't necessarily need to do that's going to grow the company.
Yeah, and I think that's what nature abhors a vacuum, is if you create 30 hours of time, unless you allocate that to other high value tasks in your calendar, you'll naturally just push crap back in there. For want of a better word. Yeah, good. So step 2 is freeing up time and leverage. What about step 3?
Well, no, so just onto leverage, just sticking with leverage for a little bit longer. So leverage,
Raval Navicant.
He talked about there being 4 forms of leverage: labor, automation, so tech, media, right? As in I'm pretty sure it was media, like content media, and then capital, so money, right? And I always look at this. So when we were growing our business, I'm like, okay, what form of leverage can I use in this particular situation, in this particular activity? Is that, and sometimes it'd be multiple forms of leverage, but is it labor or is it me using some form of tech like coding or automation, or is it media? It's for example, I do a media now. So if I do a live video onto one of my groups, and I've got 100 people in that group, it's me to 100 people rather than me doing that to one person. So there's a form of leverage there, right? So that's one unit in, me putting one unit in, and I'm getting 100 units of eyeballs on me. Okay, but if I think even bigger, I'm like, well, actually, my buddy has got a group where all my clients are, and he's got 1,000 people in there. So why don't I spend that same hour, right, when I'm going to do that live video media into his group where he's got 1,000 people in there. So now it's not 1 to 100, which is good. It's now 1 to 1,000, right? That is leverage. So it's the same. I'm putting that. It's always one unit in. It's my unit, whatever the unit of my time I'm putting in. And then the output is, if you get 1 to 2, great, it's a form of leverage there. If you get 1 to 10, it's an even better form of leverage. 1 to 100, 1 to 1,000, right? Does that make sense?
Oh, that's beautiful. I think that what's really clear though, buddy, is just the way you think about this. It's like it's a structure that you're employing to every decision making process in the business. So it's like, and you do this really well. It's like not just about the media. It's like, okay, well, how can we get to reach more people, or what, how can we use the same amount of time and be more effective? And for you, it's not, you don't accept just one improvement. It's like, okay, you're continually improving. It's like continue. So I think, and this is an observation of a lot of business owners, that they think they do it once and then they're exonerated. They don't have to do it again and again and again. But for you, it's constantly, what I would say, iterating that. So you not only using that skill set of thinking about leverage, you're constantly like, okay, tiny iterations. How can we reach 10 more people? How can we reach 100 more people? How can we turn that 100 into 1,000? And that's a really, really powerful mindset to move you from the operator to the owner.
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
yeah,
So, like, just sticking on these areas of leverage, because I think this is really important for the guys listening if they're running a business, which I know most of our listeners do, right? And like capital, it's quite an obvious one, but here, like, I can go out and do, let's just say, for example, this is a nice easy example, is I go and pay someone £800 to go and get us to be number one on Google for the keyword that people search the most when it comes to what we sell and what we do. Right. So I'm using I'm using my money, right, that I've earned elsewhere that's in our bank, right, to go and just get someone, use my capital just to increase our position there.
yeah, I think that's one of the ones that most business operators are most scared of using.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think,
yeah. And
in my
and
opinion.
it's like we've spent this year, don't know, 30 40K, maybe 30K on learning, right? On skill sets. So we've like, right, how that person over there is an expert in what they do. I can either spend the next year or 2 years learning that skill off my own back, right? Or I can go and pay them to either do it for me, right? Or to teach us, or doing it with me. And it just fast tracks. So that's a form of leverage. We've just absolutely fast tracked where we are to go and learn that skill over there,
There
rather
is
than taking
actually
2 years. We've just done it in 2 months.
Yeah, there is actually a hierarchy which you want to like assess about as well. It's called like the 3 levels of time investment. So like if you find an expert and you're going to pay for their bottom ticket thing, it's going to be do it yourself. So I see some marketer or some expert on the internet. I want to get their advice. I want to save time by learning what they tell me to do. If I pay them, it's do it yourself at their lowest value. Their middle of their road value, it's done with you. They'll often have some level of interaction with you. Yeah. So like a group or a mass group where they'll actually give you feedback and they'll do it with you. They'll maybe even pace a program and you'll do things step by step with you. And then the highest level is done for you. So for example, you can expect to spend anywhere between like 27 to maybe even £200 for a do it yourself kind of product. Only 200 to multiple thousands to done with you. And then like done for you services are premium. You're looking,
Yeah.
really, really excited. Like done for you media, done for you buying, done for you setting and selling. All these things are way, way more expensive, but you can absolutely fold time and pay for that at every level of development. Being able to pay experts isn't reserved specifically for people with loads of money.
Yeah. The other form of leverage is, and especially in today's world, is tech and automation and code, right? It's a fantastic form of leverage. However, and I got this, I kind of knew it anyway, but I'd never really, no, I talked the other day about someone articulating it really well. For me, Alex Hormozy articulated this so well. He used a great example for one of his businesses, and I was like, oh wow, that makes so much sense. So I'll use the same example from him. And what he said was that he used an example of when in his business, one of his tech teams wanted to put some automation in to alleviate, I think it was like his account staff from doing a certain task every week, right? So they're doing this task every week, and they're like, hey, if we put this bit of tech in, right, we can automate that, and then the account staff won't have to do it every single week. Sounds good, right? Lovely. Let's get that automation in. However, and this is where going into owner mode, right? Thinking, because if you're an operator, you might not think about this. If you just go into technical mode, you might not think about this, but going into owner mode was like, well, actually, how much is that going to cost us? And what's the time involved in that? And then is there an ROI on it, right?
Yeah.
So the actual scenario here was that, well, it's going to take the tech team, I think it was 10 days to build it, right? The tech team I think it was something like $5,000 a day or $10,000 a day. Say it's $10,000 a day. So actually, it's going to take them, that's going to cost 100,000, right? The accounts team, that particular task is actually a $10 task, and it's done once a week. So it'd take however many years to actually get an ROI on that. I think it was like 15 years to get an ROI, right?
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, well, no, don't bother doing that. And guys, I fell into this trap many a time, and that's why it resonated so well with me, because I'm like, oh my God, I remember so often in my previous company where I'd spend time building out tech, and it was good and it helped save some time. But actually, the ROI on like my hours being put into that, and then the low value of what that tech actually solved was minuscule, and it would have taken probably 5 years to actually get an ROI on it.
Yeah.
Right. So that's important, because we can get, and I see this a lot. Oh, we'll automate that. Don't forget the tech. Don't forget automation. Well, just be really, really careful that you don't put all your time into that. And then it takes you 5 years to get an ROI on it, when you could have just spent your time doing something else over here, like selling, and then you just made a 10 grand sale. And fantastic.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's like that's blown my mind, because I think we get so into trying to reclaim time, but some things do need that intimate touch. Like even things like follow-up emails. Sometimes that you receive a follow-up email from someone, and you know it's an automated one, it's not as valuable. There's some things that you do actually need to ask yourself as a business owner: is this really valuable to the customer?
Yeah.
And it actually is. Yeah. So that's step 2. So leverage. Step
So
3, Pete.
just to finish off step 2, because if guys listen, if you go into doing step 1 and then looking at step 1, prioritizing what you're doing, getting rid of the stuff you don't need to be doing, and focusing on higher value, now you implement step 2, where you're thinking about leverage and you're thinking about it from an owner's perspective. Am I going to get an ROI on this? Right? Life and business grows rapidly. Things get really good, right? So now the perfect routines and the perfect day setups is every hour that you're spending on work, that it's leveraged work, right? That's, things get fun, right? You create volume by doing that. When you're thinking about, well, my 1 unit in now is going to give me a 10 or 100 or 1,000 units out, and you're doing that with everything, things get really great.
Yeah. I think I've had loads of times in my business where I felt like I was like, oh yeah, I'm doing so much and getting so little. You can feel like as a business owner, you can feel that. Like I'm doing so much and I'm getting so little. Like even it could be like profit, it can be time back, it could be like, I'm working so hard in my business and the profit's not high. I'm working so hard in my business and I'm not getting enough time to see my family. I'm working so hard with my clients and they're not getting results. All of those are leverage issues. And so it's being able to look at them and go, actually, hang on a second, I do really need to start working on that. Pete, I'm going to check before I try and move to the third one, because you've really wanted to go like a mile deep on
Yeah,
this.
I do.
Have you got any more on leverage? Keep going.
I could talk a lot more on it, but maybe we should do a separate podcast just on leverage.
No, I think this is gold. Keep going. Like, is there
no,
anything you
let's
want to
because the next steps also, and I'm conscious of time. We've got a couple of more steps here, and they are important also, because if you and this is like, guys, using leverage and then mental models. And my favorite mental model is Pareto, is the 80-20. You get it gets really sexy, it gets really fun, right? So I'm keen to move on. It gets go on to these next steps because that will help. And if we can just grab like, I'm just going to use that little 20% nugget there, and that's going to get me 80% of that result, you're going to do really well.
Yeah, we could literally do a whole podcast on mental models that really actually help you. So the next one is step 3. Like, what would be the next step?
Okay, the next step here is actually delegating, and it's knowing how to do that, right? And I think what I see a lot of is that we either just don't think about it, but so we have to get into that mind of, okay, I need to get something off my plate, right? And then it's knowing what to do and then how to do it. So what to do, it's like we said earlier, list everything out that you do in your business. And then start looking. And so we have 4 quadrants. So we've got zone of genius, which is in so imagine like square box, right? Split it into 4. Top left, you've got zone of genius. Okay. Zone of genius is the stuff that you absolutely love doing, that really, really lights you up, that gives you energy doing it. You're great at doing it as well, right? And you've mastered it. It gives you fulfillment, right? On the top right, we've got zone of excellence. This is stuff you like doing and you're good at. It takes you minimal effort to do it. You get enjoyment out of it and satisfaction. And that's that, right? So it's not zone of genius, but you're pretty good at it, right? Zone of competence is in bottom left, right? So you don't like it, but you're good at it. You've likely learned this from doing it over and over and over. So you've likely learned it from repetition and necessity. Doesn't give you satisfaction, doesn't give you fulfillment. You're just doing it, right? And then zone of incompetence is you don't like it and you're not good at it, right? It's outside your expertise and it leaves you feeling inadequate or frustrated when you do it, right? That is in the bottom right. So I would like all your tasks that you've written down, everything that you do in the business, absolutely everything, I would then split them into those 4 categories. Now, team, this isn't to say that those bottom 2 categories, that means, oh, great, well, I hate doing sales, right? I'm just going to outsource that. This isn't like a get out of jail free card to then go and outsource all the things in your bottom 2. However, it's probably the first place I would be looking is actually what is in my bottom 2 that's taking loads of my time that I can go and outsource and just get off my plate and free my time up that's of low value. So what are those $10 tasks in those bottom 2? So it's low value to the business, it'd be low value to outsource, and it's currently taking up a load of my time. I'll go and outsource that, right? I'll go and delegate those. Okay. If you've got like sales and marketing down there and you haven't got capital to go and outsource that to someone who's much, much better at it, you're going to have to get good at that. You're going to have to lean into that. And like I had this conversation very, very, very quickly, actually, before podcast started about the sales muscle. When I first spoke to the guy a few weeks back, wasn't a big fan of doing phone sales, just felt uncomfortable doing it. But it's just like us going to the gym. Right, to build our muscles, we've got to put them under pressure and we've got to do it over and over again. It's repetition. Same with the sales muscle. For us to get good at it, right, we've just got to do it over and over again. And we've got to go through the pain, just like we're in the gym. You know, when you're building your biceps, it's painful, right? You got to get that squeeze, make it hurt. Same with the sales reps, right? Over and over and over again. Just keep doing those repetitions, keep doing those sales calls, even if you don't like doing it, but you get better and better at it, right? Especially if you pay real close attention to it and you're like, you know, I'm gonna get good at this skill, okay? And I'm gonna note down the client pains. I'm gonna note down all these objections that come up. I'm gonna note down when I make a sale and it goes well and what I did well here. Because then it moves into, you know, something like your zone of competence rather than incompetence. It goes into, well, actually, I don't necessarily like doing it, but I'm good at it. So I think that's what I don't want to like say, guys, delegate fucking everything. When you might not be in a position to do so. And actually, if it's a really, really high value task, you probably should be doing that initially until you get into a position where it's like, okay, that sales I still don't really like doing. And then here's where the next form of leverage comes in. It's like, well, I'm going to employ a salesperson and then just manage that person. So rather than me spending 10 hours a week doing sales calls, I'm spending 1 hour a week doing sales management, right? It makes sense.
Yeah, I just thinking the guy from Gymshark, Ben for a second name, and he just talks about how when he was in his business, he wasn't the CEO, and he stepped out of the CEO role because although he was the head of the business, and he got in as CEO because he got him to be, and he just modeled him for a number of years and watched him, and he's now stepped into the CEO role in the business. But he liked, like, there's some things that people were saying there that he actually still liked doing. Like Mark Zuckerberg still codes. And there's a few people that, like Elon Musk, still gets on the floor of the development of the products. But what these guys have is something that's really valuable, and a really important distinction in all of this is choice. They don't have to do it. And I think that's the big key here. What Pete's talking about is that you might be a great salesperson, and the problem being is that you have to sell, and that's what creates the contraction in you. It's like, oh, no, I don't, I really enjoy sales. I enjoy people enrolling in my company, or enroll making a deal, or selling to someone, but I have to do it. Now, what you're trying to create is a position where you say, I don't have to do it, but I enjoy it, so I go and do it now and again. For me, it's like, actually, do you know what? I might enjoy making a video now and again and being creative, but it's not me having to do it. It's me having the choice. And when you are truly an owner in your business, that is when those sorts of choices come up, and you feel dramatically different about your business because you're not having to do something, you're not controlled by the business. And I think that's the big shift, that, or the shift that a lot of people want to make, is that having that decision. If they wanted to get up in the morning and go to work, they don't have to, but they choose to. And I think that's what we're all after, is that ability to have that freedom.
Yeah, yeah. And just on on the how part, so just on the sales team example there, say, right, I've got pretty good at sales. I'm now in a position where I'm bringing enough sales that I can actually afford to bring in a sales guy that can take the sales away from me, and then I'll just form into management. So I'm going to delegate them. So how would I delegate that? I would absolutely be recording my sales calls, right? The good and the bad. And then I'd have a library of amazing sales calls, right? And then I'd also have another library of the sales calls that didn't go too well. And then I would go over those sales calls and probably a screen recording and go, okay, this is what's gone really well here. This is what I've done. This is what's gone really well here. This is what I've done. In the sales calls that haven't gone well, this is what didn't go well here. Can you see that? Can you see where that objection came up and we didn't handle that? And this is what we could have done better, and right? So then there's it's like a standard operating procedure in like very, very live and recording what we're doing, and this is how we're doing it. So then someone else can come in and watch that and go, okay. So we've got sales scripts and we've got like a format as to where we would run a sales call. All that's being documented. Okay, so this is how we do the introduction. This is how we talk about the challenges. This is how we isolate a problem. This is how we go into their background. This is how we go into how we would solve that, right? So, and then all of that is scripted. So then that's a standard operating procedure just for that sales scripting part. So really, to just simply on how to, on like the how part to delegate, is if you're doing that now, video yourself doing it, or screen record yourself doing that technical task, and then with some clear instructions next to it, maybe in written format. And that's simply how you start. That there is 10 times better than just doing absolutely nothing, just getting someone on board and going, hey, crack on.
I think that's
Start
what
doing
most
sales
people
reps.
do. I think that's
Yeah.
actually what they do. Yeah.
Absolutely. Whereas if you do something that's you're doing it really well, you document that in video and in text, and when they come on board, and like part of your onboarding over the next couple of weeks is to go through all of these standard operating procedures that we have created for this particular role. And then I want you to come back and present to me what you found and what you've learned. Like, you do really well.
Yeah, I think we both had this in our companies. Is like this real rigorous onboarding process for staff. Is like our staff are fast. We really rigorously trained, like sales, service, workouts, everything. Like there was a really comprehensive first 12 weeks. And I think it's a really important process to have, and you build that out once. And I think one of the biggest valuations on a business is key point of failure. Like if you look at a business running without the owner, if you want your business to be valuable, you have to have its ability to run without you. Otherwise, you haven't got a business, you got a job. So part of being an owner is building a company that could be sold. There's actually a book called Built to Sell by I think it's John Warrillow. and it's just how to build your company to sell it. And if you build a company, if you build your company as if you would sell it, it makes it a better business anyway, even if you don't plan on selling it. So definitely worth, do you know what, Pete? If someone listened to that podcast and did those steps, they would see dramatic shifts in their life, their business, their time, probably their relationship. So I want to just make sure that those who've listened in today, that the gravity of which and the expertise and the knowledge that Pete shared, phenomenal. There's not many coaches that know it and literally live it and actually teach it on a daily basis. So I wanted you to make sure that acknowledge that for you, brother. That was awesome.
Yeah, pleasure. I think we'll leave that. There's 3 steps there. Good steps. Crack on, grow your businesses.
No, I think this is a really important point. Is like go and use them, and let Pete know if you've used some of his tips, because I think you don't do this just to do a podcast. You do it because you care about people doing this in the business.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because these are things that I had to learn. I had to learn myself, or I paid other people incredible amounts of money to go and teach me.
Yeah, like what you've just shared. I know that a lot of people will be spending hundreds of thousands learning, either in time, energy, or money. So yeah, please, feel free to reach out to Pete if you've used any of the tips or tricks or the models which he shared today. And thank you for joining us on today's podcast.
Yep. If you thought it was legendary, leave us a review. That's what I'd love. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, that's a big thank you. And just we talk about reviews, just a quick how-to. The only way that you can actually leave us a review is so you open up Apple Podcasts, and then on the Apple Podcast page at the bottom of the screen, you have to scroll all the way down through all of the episodes, and it's the last bit, and then you can click the star button. If it's a 5, give us a 5. If it's not, tell us how we can make it a 5. Thanks so much for listening.
Cheers, guys.